This is the Night Wolf howling at you, and today we're going to take a look at the G.I. Joe Classified series, Tigerforce, Duke, and Ram Cycle. This was the one I got at the Chicago Toy Show for $20, I believe is what I paid for it. So a really good deal since it's less than what a figure usually costs nowadays. And I actually do really like the Ram Cycle design, so that's a bonus. Fairly soon we'll actually get a third version of the Ram Cycle, this time for Night Force. However, I don't think Night Force actually had a Ram Cycle, but you know, Classified Series is just going ahead and recoloring all their small vehicles whenever possible. On the side of the box, we get like the real American hero Duke looking image, which is funny because this actually reminds me a lot more of the cartoon than it does the actual classified figure. Possibly partially because he's got more, or I should say less forehead showing in that side image than he does in the actual figure itself. On the back, we get our product shots. Again, the Ram Cycle is absolutely gorgeous. And I think he actually comes with different, some of his equipment, I believe, is different than what came with the original release figure. But let's go ahead and open this up. That was smooth, wasn't it? You know, the interesting thing is, this is actually a really nice presentation right there. So this would have looked actually really good in a window package. And if they weren't so obsessed with doing these things, this would have been a good place to put all the other equipment too, you know? Because when you look at it like this is a lot of open space. This is my whole cynical thing about them trying to be environmentally friendly. Duke here could have been leaning sideways this way. That would have cut off that part of the box, filled in this more. You still could have cut this off probably a good inch or inch and a half shorter. Still had the equipment box there, and you would have saved a lot of cardboard. So anyway, let's get him out of the package. Oh, jeez. So right off the bat, we got Dookie here. Nah, that was wrong. And the Ram Cycle. This is without any additional items. You can use the Ram Cycle pretty much just as it is if you want. There's even a kickstand so that you can have it stay upright without a figure being on it. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty cool that way. Duke don't have none of his accessories. Here we have the machine gun for the side mount of the Ram Cycle. It's also been designed so it can be pulled off and used in the hands of the figures. Although I think technically Roadblock and Gung Ho are probably the only ones technically strong enough to actually do this, especially once you start shooting it. And the barrel does move, which is cool. Not that you're probably going to do that very often with it, but still. You know, it's kind of funny too, looking at this. There's this little flat spot right there. And I think maybe originally they intended to have a hole in there so that the backpack would go through that hole and then into the hole in his back to help hold the harness in place with the backpack. But they obviously didn't go and follow through with that. Equipment wise here, we got a little pistol. This is the same futuristic pistol I think that came with the original release. It goes in a side holster, thigh holster, thigh holster. We have a binocular kind of a thing here. Looks like with the way it's designed, it probably does like 3 different types of lighting. And there's a little hole on the belt to attach it to, like so. Then we get a more traditional G.I. Joe weapon with a magazine that comes out. And I think this is actually based on, I think the original Duke figure did come with this style of gun. So I think that's what that's based on. Ah, I wish he would stand up straight. It's starting to annoy me. And then we get his backpack. I believe this has actually kind of been referred to as a paratrooper backpack in the past. It's got the little E-tool for doing quick digging bits. Although usually I think these have a serrated edge too, so like it can be used like a saw if necessary. It is just molded in the green with just the shovel part though being another color. And that just fits on his back. Yeah, actually, you know what? I do think really that spot probably was meant to though, like this. Anyway, so now we have to slide that over. Set Duke aside for the moment. Here we get the rest of the ram cycle. Wheel side, not wheel side. This is, of course, designed to fit in here. And this little clip here where you put the handle around, that actually does a really good job of holding it in place. It's very firm. And of course, put that together, and you've got the sidecar for the ram cycle. Which then we have these 2 pegs over here, peg holes over here, I should say. And these 2 pegs. And boom, they go together. Now you can put the kickstand up and it'll still stay up on its own. So the cool thing though with the Tigerforce version of this, like the original version was just pretty much all green. Tigerforce going of course for, it's supposed to be some kind of jungle camouflage gimmick, but let's be honest, doesn't really work out well as that because it's freaking yellow and orange. That would be more like Prairie Land camouflage if you ask me. So it should be Lion Force maybe. But I do like the jaw here like this, though. It always reminds me more of a shark mouth than a tiger's mouth. But they got a good gradation in the coloring here. And although I think I'm going to say that probably in the original Tigerforce line, this was probably a much brighter red. This is one of those cases where the darker color looks better. Unlike the Night Force, where I think it would have really been nice if they had used that Day-Glow yellow on the figures. But that's my personal pet peeve with those. Other people probably disagree. Maybe they like the more realistic tone to that. But before we get too much further with that, let's go ahead and take a look at our buddy Duke's articulation. So we have the chicken neck. So the bottom of the neck moves down and up. The head also has that kind of like hinge to it. But there's also a ball joint there so that you can spin his head all the way around. You can even see the hinge in the back of his neck because his hair is so short. And it's kind of weird. Like, I'm not seeing the scar that's supposed to be on his eyebrow on this one. So I wonder if they forgot to paint it because it's on the it was on the box, wasn't it? Pretty sure it was on the box. I'm not a big fan though of this head sculpt for Duke. I think part of it is to me is that he looks a little too youngish here. Like he looks like he's in his 20s and probably shouldn't be a sergeant. But anyway, his arms got the hinge to go up and down. He's got the butterfly joint in his shoulder, so you can move it sideways like this, giving us a little additional mobility in his articulation. Bicep cut, so he can spin all that around. Bicep cut is important when you have double jointed elbows because it allows you to actually move that arm around when it's bent. Because single jointed elbows, which usually have just a peg in there, can turn, but not double jointed ones. He's got a spin at the wrist. He's got in and out articulation, which is fairly unique because I think most of the G.I. Joe figures that I go over usually have an up and down articulation there. He's got an ab crunch rather than a boob cut, but then a lot of the original couple waves, most of the first few waves of the males in G.I. Joe had the ab crunch. He does have a waist swivel, and you can spin it all around. It is like on a ball joint, so you can wiggle him quite a bit. We've got the standard drop-down hips from Classified, give you a little extra room to move. Spin at the thigh. Double jointed knees once more. And a boot cut. Now his boots do have this added bit glued onto them to give it a little bit more of a shin guard look. So they are nice enough that they don't actually interfere around the leg. He does have the hinge at the foot, or at the ankle. Yeah, foot, ankle, same, close enough, right? And you can spin it on the peg that's there if you want to. Now, as a special treat, though, I do have the original Tigerforce Duke from my collection. Probably came with a random lot that I bought. I am not sure if I have his equipment or not. I do have some bags of equipment. Later on, like when I first started buying vintage G.I. Joe stuff, I would get a lot of stuff in lots, and I didn't separate out the equipment with the figures like I probably should have, and a lot of that equipment is in bags or plastic containers together. So one day I'm going to have to go through and actually try to figure out what everything is and who it goes with. But you can kind of see where the style, is the same, except for Tigerforce Duke did have brown hair instead of his normal blonde locks. And also, to be perfectly honest, the original Duke face sculpt kind of makes him look like a used car salesman, in my opinion. Even if this is not my favorite head sculpt, especially since they did the retro card back Duke, which looks a lot better in my opinion, this is still better than the used car salesman head that this guy's got. But you can kind of see, again, in the olden days, the figures were a lot more brighter colored. And I think in this case, I like the more muted, darker colors compared to this. It really seems to be only the Night Force that they've done so far where I miss that bright day glow orange and yellow that they used to use. But we also do have our original style Duke, also purchased at the Chicago Toy Show, the same one that actually, I think I got them both at the same toy show, or the same one that the same day. I think I got them on the same day. And yeah, except for the gun where he's got that more futuristic rifle that everybody hated. Pretty much everything else he came with is the same. Same futuristic gun. which is kind of ironic that we're talking about how like the original toys were brighter colored, and then they muted it for the Tigerforce, but then this version has got a much more brighter color thing. And I'm not sure which version of Duke this is from the original one because, like, I think the first wave they released two versions of each figure. You know, they did a repaint later. Scarlet is the only one where I recognize the difference instantly. And it seems so weird because whenever I've gone to look at the classified websites, I always see the numbers, but I never see the actual, like, them doing the differences between them. But I thought somebody said the difference was instead of the gold highlights, the other version had silver, maybe? If you know, please go ahead and let me know in the comments section. The Ram Cycle does have little foot pegs for the figure. The really fun part of any time you're using a motorcycle with a toy is trying to position the figure so that he can hold on to it properly. So we try to get his foot pegged in there. By the way, I would really like to see them do a Tigerforce Scarlet. I know Super 7 released a Tigerforce Scarlet in their retro card back line. You know, the ones that were designed like the old Star Wars figures with like 5 points of articulation. I am pretty sure the handlebars on this one are actually painted because on my original one of this figure, I noticed that his hands had a bunch of red paint on them. And to me, it looks like his hands are sculpted. So that's one thing to be aware of is that the paint can come off of the handles. All right. And with the ab crunch, you can actually get him looking forward on the bike. And it is easier to get the feet on the pegs without this in place. So once you do have him on there, you can put that in there and you're good. Also, there is technically enough room to fit a second figure if you want. So we can have Duke riding bitch with Duke. Oh, except for I just accidentally knocked out the other thing. Okay, so that's a bit of a problem. So for the display purposes, there we go. This side we have them like that, so it looks fine. Twin brothers riding together. However, on this side, you know, I had to bend Duke's knee up. But anyway. Codename Duke. Tigerforce First Sergeant Squad Leader. File name Hauser. Conrad S. SN number. We're not going to read that one. Primary Military Special. Airborne Infantryman. Secondary Military Specialty. Small Arms Repairman. I think that's actually different than what his regular file card said. And then again, I don't think I have the original Duke file card. I think it was a later release. Birthplace, St. Louis, Missouri. Duke was fluent in French, German, and English when he enlisted. Graduated top of his class at Fort Benning Airborne School. Opted for U.S. Army Special Languages School where he specialized in Han Chinese and Southeast Asian dialects. Upon graduation, he served in the Army's Special Forces Unit in the Southeast Asia, where he received the Congressional Medal of Honor and 2 Bronze Stars for single-handedly rescuing 34 POWs from a heavily guarded enemy compound. I wonder if that's supposed to be against Cobra or if it was just supposed to be another war that was going on at the time. Because in the 80s when this came out, that could literally have been, you know, one of the, what is it, like the No, Vietnam was in the 60s, and I think Korea was in the 70s. Well, actually, if it was, it could have been the Korean War, I guess. Before he was a sergeant, when he was first a young man. Because really, if he's a sergeant, I would think he'd be in his like late 20s, early 30s. The man's a walking legend. He's got more combat experience than some of those generals in the Pentagon. Duke's the kind of grunt you want to have right by your side when the going gets rough. He can assess any hostile situation with lightning speed and act upon it quicker than you can say Tigerforce. The man doesn't know the meaning of the word fear. In fact, I don't think he has ever heard of the word at all. So that's our Tigerforce Duke figure. I hope you enjoyed this. It was definitely a good purchase, even at full price, which I think when it came out was around $40. I think this was a good purchase. But then I like the motorcycles. What can I say? That's why I also pre-ordered two of Shockwave with the Night Force Ram cycle because I'm a psychotic lunatic who likes motorcycle toys. I hope you enjoyed this. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Make fun of me if you want to. I don't mind. Peace and love.